So just to keep the momentum moving, I just want to say in honor of the last storytelling that I don't know Janine Laverty. I have no idea who Janine Laverty is, but I learned tonight one thing. I need to meet Janine Laverty. I'm going to tell a story that happened right after I graduated with my master's degree at the University of Albany, where I attended college and graduate school. And I'm a boy from a small town called Brooklyn. Oh, you've heard of it? Oh, okay. So I come up to Albany, and now I know why they call it Smallbany, as compared to the life I lived until I was 18. But after graduation of my master's, I once again found myself not knowing what I'm going to do. It happened in college, and that's why I got a master's. I had no idea I was going to go to school some more. So I said to my roommate, his name is Guanji, that would be Tom, but his nickname is Guanji, so I still call him that. I can't change it. So I'm going to use the word Guanji, if you'll allow me. So Guanji, great friend, always been great friend. And I asked him if he wanted to go away on a trip. Let's do something fun. And he's like, I don't have a lot of money. And I'm like, you don't need money. You just need to have fun. Let's just go. So we got our act together. We bought tickets and we flew. We drove to New York from Albany and we flew to California because I had friends and so did he. And we figured no money, no hotels. Let's see if we could cop a stay with friends. And we made arrangements, phone calls, and et cetera, and it all worked out. But we had to drive to New York to JFK because we couldn't fly from Albany because, as you all probably know, it's very expensive to fly from Albany because you got to stop and go. They make you do it twice. So it was fine with me because it was nonstop to LAX. So that's not so bad. We could do that. So we get on the plane, and I have at that time a guide dog. And the dog is already flown many times. We've flown for 5 years. And I usually take the leash and wrap it around the bottom base of the seats so that he's got a seatbelt on too. And I tie it to the harness, not his neck. So if anything happened, he's being held by the harness, which is much more comfortable than being choked. He doesn't like that. I don't know why, but he doesn't like it. But he goes to sleep in the bulkhead seat. Do you folks know the bulkhead? The front of each section is a wall. So the dog lays right up against that wall and he's out like a light. And I got situated and the flight attendant, in those days they called them stewardesses. I don't even know how to say that word easily. Flight attendant came over and introduced herself. Hi, sir, I'm Kathy. I said, hi, I'm Michael. She said, can I tell you a little bit about the plane so you know all the safety features? I said, sure, that'd be great. She says, this is an L-1011. I said, okay. So I said, it's a wide body. She said, yes. I said, it's 2, 3, and 2. She said, yes. 2 aisles. I'm on the right side. She said, yes. I said, I'm in the window seat. She said, well, that's obvious. I said, thanks. And then she said, if you need anything, just here's the call bell. Just let me know if you need anything. So I said, that's great, Kathy. I appreciate it so much. My friend is out like a light. He worked all night and drove straight to New York, and he was sawing logs. And I'm wide awake. I'm so excited. We're going away. I'm going to California. I've been there a few times. I really love it. And Guanji is still sleeping. Andy, my guide dog, is still sleeping. And I don't want to wake him up, but I got to go to the restroom. So I figured, let's get that smart flight attendant over here. So I push the call button. She comes over and she says, yes, Michael, what can I do for you? And I said, well, I'd like to go to the restroom if you could give me assistance. The dog is sleeping, my friend is sleeping, I don't want to bother anybody. She's like, that's great. She goes, well, we're sitting right behind first class. So why don't we just go up to first class because it's closer. I said, fine with me. I compete with the good people. That's fine. So she gives me her arm and we guide into the first class section, which is pretty big. It's about 10 rows. And she takes me up to the room. I go in. She said, I'll be right here. I said, great, thank you. I come out. I grab her arm and we go back down the aisle toward my seat. And we get through the curtain and I said, Kathy. And she said, yeah? I said, come here. I was sitting in my seat. So she squatted down next to me and she said, what's up? I said, I just heard a woman in the first class section cough and sneeze. Was that Joan Rivers? And she says, no. And she says, and we're not allowed to discuss the passengers in the plane. I said, okay, I'm sorry. I just heard it and I don't know, I thought I'd ask. So I'm sitting there in my window seat, which she kindly told me I was in, and just kind of hanging out, thinking about what I was going to do. I had a headset, so I was going to listen to music. And then I guess 20 minutes went by. Andy's still sleeping. Gwanji's still sleeping. I'm getting hungry. There's no food yet. I love airplane food. I did. I used to love it. How do they fit that little bit of food in that little bit of a compartment? It's like 3 tortellini. I said, I'm stuffed. This is great, you know. So anyway, I digress. Kathy says, Michael, she squats down. I said, yes. She says, Miss Rivers would like the pleasure of your company in first class. I said, what? I made a face. She says, yeah. She goes, I blew it. I go, what do you mean? She goes, I told her that you said you recognized her sneeze and cough. And she didn't believe it, so she wants to meet you. So Kathy guides me up to first class. Joan Rivers always flew 2 seats to herself, 1 for her and 1 for her stuff. And she had stuff because when I got there, she had to clear the whole seat. She had contracts and papers and briefcase. And she says, oh my God, she says, you're Michael in the flesh. Who did you think I was going to be? Oh, no, stop. Just sit here. So I sit down and she says, would you like some wine? I said, sure, I'd have a glass of wine with you, Miss Rivers. That'd be great. She says, don't you call me Miss Rivers. I'm Joan. Okay, Miss Rivers. She's like, will you please call me Joan? I said, I want to call you Joan, but I have been trained to be very respectful, so I'd rather call you Miss Rivers. She's like, no, you got to leave, and you can't have any wine if you don't call me Joan. I said, you know, I was like 23. I'm like, okay, Joan. I'm not going to pass up on the wine. And we talked for 3.5 hours. And she was all about to go on a huge student college campus comedy tour. And I said, that's funny because I was the president of the student government at the University of Albany. And I know all the shenanigans that go on with making these contracts. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, when you start looking at these contracts, you're going to realize that they're not the same. When you do stuff with, you know, TV studios and big show hotels, they are much more the same. And she's like, that's true. I'm looking at these contracts. They're like start from the middle. They start from the end. They go upside down and turn around. I can't even figure out. There's no pattern to them. I said, let's read some contracts. I'll help you. So we read some contracts and I showed her the things that the students were doing to get a little extra out of her or give a little less to her than she wanted in her contract. And she's like, I'm on fire. These are getting all rewritten. I'm going on a college tour. I said, oh boy, don't mention my name if you wouldn't mind. I don't want you to say anything about me. She's like, no, it's going to be all good. I love it. Well, we finished our second bottle of wine. And she says to me, what are you doing out in California? And I said, well, my friend and I decided we'd go away. I just graduated from my master's degree, and I still don't know what the hell I'm going to do with myself. So I'm finding myself. I'm starting west, and I'm going to work my way east. Nothing like that was true. That's what I said. So because I'm a nervous wreck still. I'm 3.5 hours with this woman. I'm still nervous. So she's like, okay. She says, so what are you going to do in California? I said, well, this sounds pretty weird, but we're going to rent a car in Los Angeles, and my friend's going to drive all the way up to San Francisco, And then we're going to drive all the way back and stop all along the way in different places. She's like, oh my God, when are you going to be in LA? I said, well, we're going to rent a car right now. We're going to leave. And then we're going to come back in about 8 days and work our way down. And she says, good. She goes, do you want to go to the Johnny Carson show? And I said, really? And she says, yeah, I'm being serious. I said, oh my God, Miss Rivers. I gave her a big hug. I said, I'd love to go. And she said, why are you so excited now all of a sudden? I said, because if you're inviting me to the Tonight Show, it means you're going to be the host because you're the permanent guest host. She goes, you're 23 years old and you know that? I'm like, yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'd love to go. She gives me a business card with her secretary's name and phone number on it and tells me to call her secretary. So I call her secretary and she's like, oh my God, Michael Corso, we've been waiting for you to call. Jones told us everything about you. I'm like, I'm getting yelled at. This is kind of weird. I'm like, okay, but she's like, well, when do you want to go to the show? Joan's going to have the whole week, Monday to Friday. I said, well, would it be embarrassing for me to ask who the guests are going to be? Because I could say Tuesday randomly, but I'd love to hear the guests. So she read me the list, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know half these people. And then she read me David Brenner and Elvis Costello. And I'm like, I love them. That's great. So I asked her for the tickets. They said they'll be waiting for you at NBC Studios in Burbank on Thursday night. I said, great. So we go to, I'm pausing. I want to tell another part of the story, which is much more important. I left it out. I'm told I shouldn't have done that. I just learned that from Janine Laverty. See, I really do need to meet Janine Laverty. When we get off the plane, I go back to my seat after we're done, we're landing. And Guanji's like, where the hell have you been? Excuse my French, I hope it's okay. I said, I've been sitting in first class with Joan Rivers. And he went, yeah. He's like, so not believing me. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say, but it's true. So we disembark, we get off the plane, we go to the carousels to find our luggage. And he said, so tell me about Joan Rivers. And I'm about to start talking to him. And he's like, oh my God. I'm like, what? He's like, Devo is right here next to us getting their luggage. They were on our flight. Do you know who Devo is? I know the crowd, I'm getting it now. Devo's a band from the 80s, punk rock band. And he idolized them. So he was in Gaga Land and he forgot all about me and Joan Rivers. But all of a sudden, we hear, Michael! It's Joan Rivers running down the corridor, like running. Like if I had more stage, I would actually do it for you. Even though I couldn't see it, I knew how she was running with bags and things. And she was a little old lady even then. But she was fantastic. She comes running over, gives me a giant hug and a kiss on my cheek. And she says, you must be Guanji. And I went like this. I was so psyched. And he's like, oh, Miss Rivers, Michael told me all about you. And she says, right on cue, tell me what he told you. And he was like stumbling. And I'm like, Devo. I just said, Devo. And Joan Rivers picks up and she goes, oh yeah, Devo was on the plane too. And we all cracked up laughing. And she's like, where are you guys going? I said, we're going to the rent-a-car place. And she's like, come in my limo, get your bags, come in my limo, I'll take you to the rent-a-car place. I said, Joan, it's 30 yards up the corridor. I don't care, I want you in my limo, I want to see you, come on. So she takes us to the limo, and we get in the limo, and she makes the driver open up a bad bottle of white wine. I say that because the wine we drank on the plane was, I don't like white wine, it was phenomenal. It's like, I don't know how she pulled that off, but she is Joan Rivers. So we say goodbye, and now I'm at NBC Studios in Burbank going to the show. And the woman who's there taking will call says, I don't see your name on the list. You have to leave next. And she goes to the next person. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is legitimate. Joan Rivers' secretary set this up. It can't not be right. So I said to the woman again, excuse me, I'm really sorry, but I got to believe my name is on that list. It's just not possible. And she said, look, I looked at 2 lists. You're not on either one of them. You need to leave. You're taking up too much room with the dog. You got to get out of the way. We got to get people into the theater. Good for you. So I turned to her and said, look, I'm going to go call Joan Rivers now and ask her what happened. I apologize for being in your way. I'm so sorry. And she says, wait a minute. Did you say Joan Rivers? I said, yeah. She goes, oh my God, that's a different list. I'm so sorry. She grabs the list. There's one name on it. Michael Corso and guest. This lady says, please don't tell anybody. I'm going to get fired. I love you. I'm like, she's hugging me. She's, oh my God. I'm like, all right, thank you, fine. So she herself escorts me and Guanji down in the theater. And we go down and down and down and down. And I said, Guanji, feels like we're going all the way down to the bottom. He said, there's a piece of masking tape on the back of a chair. It says Michael Corso. I'm like, what? We go to the chair and he says, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? The chair next to you says, and guest. So I didn't know the term +1 back then, but I'm like, I guess you're my date. And we sit down and Guanji's on my right. I'm here. And the seat right here is a guy named Freddie DeCordola. If anybody knows who that is, he was the producer of the Tonight Show. And he had a little refrigerator between my leg and his leg. And he's like, very generous. What would you like? I'm like, scotch. I was a wise guy, 23. He's like, scotch it is. What, do you want this kind or this kind? I'm like, what is going on? And I just had Doors on the Rocks, and he joined me. Joan Rivers comes out on the stage, and they do a warm-up before they record. And the warm-up, by the way, you think my French is bad? You should have heard what she was saying up there. Out of control. Out of control. It was hysterical. At the end of her warm-up, she comes up to me. She's on the stage. Her feet are like at my face level. And she and Freddie DeCordola grab me and pull me up on the stage. And she's hugging me and giving me like high fives and holding my hand up in the air like this. And she's telling the audience about the plane flight and how I saved her more than $1 million in the students who were trying to cheat her. And I was like, we're not recording, right? She gave me a big kiss on the lips in front of the audience. I got a standing ovation. I went down to the floor, grabbed my scotch, and now I told the story. Thank you.